Greetings again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Commander of OSI, Brigadier General Terry Bullard. Sir, it's so great to have you as a participant now on your first podcast interview. Welcome aboard.
I know, Wayne, so I'm glad you're walking me through this. I'm in I know I'm in sure hands in working through this, but I'm excited about this. I've loved, followed the previous podcast. Very excited about where we're headed with this. So I know you'll marshal me through it very, very well, and I'm looking forward to doing it with you. And it's just really great to be here. So thanks.
Great to have you, sir. It won't hurt a bit, believe me.
Perfect.
Sir, let's dive into it, shall we then? As 2020 winds down, and for our listeners, we're recording this on actually, according to the calendar, the first day of winter.
Yeah.
which is another milestone. As 2020 does wind down, sir, let's address the elephant that's been in the room since March. That, of course, is COVID-19, which made this year different from any other in OSI history, for that matter. Now, from your perspective as the commander, how has the pandemic shown the mettle of your command to adapt and overcome while still delivering the goods mission-wise? I mean, the excellence has still been there throughout this trying time.
I tell you what, and as we marched into it, after the kickoff of the year, I don't think anybody knew, what to expect, how long this would go, the depth of the impact. Very early on, of course, we were still getting conflicting information on how to correct for it. The appropriate TTPs, the right protective equipment to wear.
Right.
So all of that was out there, and of course we're thinking through that. First and foremost was how do we get the command through this and and minimize sickness, minimize loss. And at that point, of course, we were hearing just really the horrible, the most scary aspects of it. So as we moved in, we were very blessed in that we had a great task force stand up here, had some phenomenal leadership here in the headquarters that really took it and ran with it, and then just awesome field leadership that responded, provided guidance. Our region commanders, senior commanders, sitting down on a regular basis, multiple times a week, talking through the challenges and how they were attacking it and learning from each other, literally, day to day. On the front of this.
Because I know the Command Chief said, sir, excuse me for interrupting, but Command Chief Bern Flint said there was no manual on this to begin with.
Exactly.
So you had to do it on the fly.
That's right. I mean, everything was learning. Everything was up there. But I'll tell you, specific to your question, I think initially as we went into maximizing telework and we went into distance, having to work from a distance, only come together, the natural questions came up. Well, how are we going to be able to continue the mission? What are we going to do when we have a crime scene? What are we going to do when we have a national security issue pop up? And I tell you, Wayne, I think as we were thinking through this, the field was figuring it out.
Oh, yeah.
They were responding. We have the type of agents, analysts, and pro staff that weren't going to sit back and wait or have something emerge and use it as an excuse for mission failure. They just weren't going to let that happen.
Right.
So it was humbling, awe-inspiring to start watching the first cases coming in.
Right.
And the first pictures of how we were, even for the most simple crime scene, completely, Tyvexing up and putting masks on. How folks were, innovating with shift work in the office. How the connectivity for the network was terrible in those first couple of weeks. And then the Air Force sprinted, to really bring that back up. And now I look at, how folks are connecting from home as opposed to when things first kicked off with COVID, and it's night and day. So, the ability to do that, and then
lots of lessons were learned.
Lots of lessons learned, and probably the biggest question I get on that front is, okay, well, what does normal look like when we come back out of this? And I tell them, I'm like, gosh, I sure hope, with all the people, in OSI, even today, we have agents and family members who, sadly are are picking this thing up and, having to deal with it or being exposed to folks who do have it.
Right.
We've been blessed in that we've had some really scary situations with members, but very blessed from a health standpoint. For employees, we've lost family members, distant family members along the way, which has just been tragic and horrible to hear. But I tell folks, I have to believe that we will emerge from this a more efficient command that was forced to take some risks, that was forced to experiment with things that 6 months ago I would have told, 8 months ago I would have told you were crazy. No way we do that. No way we would try that.
Yeah.
Well, we had to.
Yeah.
And that has driven a lot of things that I think as the vaccine takes hold, as the herd immunity kicks in, and we finally get this virus back on its heels,
Yeah.
there are a lot of lessons learned we are going to take from this and that we are going to do in the future as part of whatever that new normal practice is.
Right.
And so that is probably, I think, one of the the best things that we can do for those that did get sick, for those that did lose family members along the way, is not just revert back to business as usual.
Yeah.
Because this drove us to become a better agency, and I would argue even a more innovative agency.
Oh yeah.
Because
your people had to do
we
it.
had to.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
absolutely had to. So, did it test the mettle? It absolutely did. In my opinion, did this command and the people within it come through in flying colors? They absolutely did, and proved everything we've always talked about: OSI agents being, OSI pro staffers being, OSI analysts being, and then some.
Yeah.
In that they were the ones. It was no magical policy from here. It was no, one-shot directive that did it. It was folks getting out, just as Chief says, in this new time with no playbook whatsoever, and figuring out how to get the mission done. And we did. No cases dropped. No opportunities. Lost. We figured it out. And it's just amazing, and it was just wonderful to watch the stories coming in from the field.
Oh yeah.
And yet another creative way that we got folks done. So could not be more proud of the command.
Very, very good, sir. Now let's get into some specific areas that you placed some particular emphasis on this past year. Number one, when you assumed leadership as the 19th Commander General of OSI, you coined the phrase, the OSI we need. Now, given the progress since you took the reins of the organization, are we well on our way toward the OSI we need?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. So I absolutely, have to go 100% honest here and say that I stole that from Secretary Wilson and General Goldfein, who at the time were working on, with our senior national level leadership on the Air Force that we need. They had taken a look at the national defense strategy, just as all of their subordinate leaders, including us, had, and realizing that we had to change. Coming out of these 2 decades in Iraq and Afghanistan, very Middle East, very countering violent extremism focused, we had to change. They had already identified some of these big things, which was then very helpful for us as their subordinate leaders in what we were going to do. So it made perfect sense that so I got to sit down for about 3 weeks before I took command. I had to step back from the vice chair and sit down at the kitchen table and say, okay, so what does this mean for OSI?
Right.
What is it when we talk about a change or we talk about a new national defense strategy? What is it that we're talking about? And so it allowed me to kind of sit and think through some of those things. And then, of course, getting back to those brilliant field leaders that we have, the brilliant, directors that we have here in the headquarters, had a lot of people to bounce those ideas off of and help hone and refine those.
Right.
And what really emerged was, okay, here are the things we have to do under the new national defense strategy to, again, as OSI has done throughout its history, reorganize, refocus, reshape to make sure that we stay incredibly relevant to the department. And now I refer to the department because now we've got two services.
Right,
we have to
right,
consider,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah. That continuing
you know,
evolution that keeps going.
Another first,
Yes.
right? Now we're the investigative agency and counterintelligence force for the Air Force and the Space Force.
Right, right.
But we knew the department was going to go through changes, so we identified those things right up front that we had to refocus on as we were not. We were not relieved of countering violent extremism across the world. We were not told, okay, now you get to leave the Middle East, now you get to leave Africa. No, in fact, for a while it was business as usual and even some strengthening in that area.
Sure.
But we knew that we were back into the era of peer and near-peer competition.
Mm-hmm.
We know we are back in the nation-state to nation-state aspect of our work and what we have to do. We knew that we had serious threats. Secretary Wilson, had grown tired and quite frankly, incredibly concerned about the number of losses of our technology to cyber espionage.
Sure.
and what that was doing to us and what it was going to do to the Air Force in the future. We knew that the Air Force was not going to be able to fight the way it had over the past 2 decades in the Middle East. That main operating bases were not going to be the way we would operate in the future. But we had to pull lessons from everything that we had put together in Iraq and Afghanistan to inform what that was going to look like. So we knew we had to refocus counterintelligence. And that's the path we set with ourselves with the OSI we need. We knew the department needed 2 big things. Number one, we've got to become part of the interagency game to protect our technology edge, our technological edge, to protect our new rapid acquisition process that we've got to do in this new peer competition environment we find ourselves in. And we've got to get all the way back to protect the research and development that's going on, to protect those new and emerging technologies that are just coming up faster and faster and being recognized more quickly and invested in at an earlier point.
It's tough to stay ahead of the game when things change so fast.
Well, it is. It absolutely is. And so that drove us. Now, we've got to get out from the bases, and we've got to get into these centers of research and development. We've got to get into these locations of rapid acquisition. We had to make sure we strengthened our PJ brothers and sisters who were protecting that existing, critical technology.
And for our novice listeners to OSI, PJ is Special Projects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we had to do all of these things, and we had to do them quickly. And then, of course, we had to look at the way that the Air Force was going to fight in the future. And what did that mean from an OSI standpoint? How do we switch gears and come out of that insurgency and counterinsurgency mindset and environment on how we've been fighting, how we've been supporting the Air Force, and move to now this global view of agile combat employment? And of course, your counterintelligence forces need to be there early, they need to be there often, and they need to be established.
Sure.
And so we had to make arguments along those lines. We knew that would then impact what we were going to do, how OSI was executing its criminal and fraud mission at the installation level.
Yeah.
So that drove an ongoing dialogue there, one that we're in now and working our way toward, and absolutely seeing the change in that has been fun to watch. And then embracing some emerging truisms or emerging aspects of what I think will shape law enforcement and national security investigations in the future, and that's everything that we now know about detecting insider threats.
Okay.
And the ability to find those faster, whether it's social sciences, whether it's the availability of data, a combination of the two. But knowing that will increasingly be a responsibility for us, and then embracing some of the investigative enablers that are absolutely fundamentally going to change what we do. As much as I tell folks, I said it's a revolution as big as the fingerprint, as big as DNA, pen and paper, to investigative work. and that is data analytics. The ability to now have all of this information,
And there's a lot of it.
available to us. But, how do you find it? How do you, perform the analysis on it? How do you get it to a point that it becomes effective in that investigative work? But it stands to revolutionize so much of human society overall, but specifically how we do investigative work in the future. So, harnessing biometrics and what we can do there. So there were just a number of areas that we needed to do. And am I seeing progress in all of those areas? Absolutely. And it's exciting to see the changes and, what's going to be out there, what's going to be coming in the years that we will see. Right now, the foundation for each of those things is being built. So I joke with folks all the time, if there was a way that I could retire, turn right around and come back in as a lieutenant or a young agent again, I would absolutely do it.
Wow. So I guess it's a fair statement to say, General, that the OSI we need is a continuing work in progress.
It will be. And I think, and we can't, while it is how's the best way to put it? While it is it is the trip, not the destination, right?
There you go.
We will not, and I don't think we can be satisfied with merely, that we have culminated, that we are there. I think
so. There really is no finish line, I guess. Then.
No. I think we will get these major building blocks in place, and then completely contemporary to the world we find ourselves in today. There will be advances every 3 months, every 6 months, and we will get better and better, and we will get faster and faster.
Right.
We will exercise more with how the Air Force will fight in the future. We will do more things to counter the adversary in the technology protection and acquisition side of the house. And we will learn, and we will roll that back into our best practices, back into our doctrine, back into our instructions. And so we'll improve. So really, from, I think, this leadership team's perspective, from the top 4 here down to our region commanders and the senior levels across the command, we realize that we are merely laying the foundation blocks of all of these things. Getting the resourcing, the manpower, the things that we need to do, and getting the first glimpses of doctrine and instruction in place to what's going to be an amazing journey for this command over the decades to come.
The future definitely has some exciting times ahead.
It
no doubt
does.
about that.
It does.
General, a familiar phrase that the military has heard of in the past is the possibility of, quote, doing more with less, unquote, with regard to manning. Now, I understand 2020 did bring some good news for OSI in that regard. Can you fill our listeners in as to what OSI is looking at to fortify its manning down the road?
Absolutely. So with all the challenges that 2020 brought, we were very blessed. In everything that I just talked about, of course, every bit of that, has to come with some discussion on, well, do we have the people to do it with?
Right.
And quite frankly, I don't think any of us subscribe anymore to doing more with less. I think you end up, you hope to break even with what you have, or you end up doing less with less.
Right.
And that's just the reality.
You can't change the laws of physics.
Or you stretch yourself too far,
Right.
and you potentially fall on the face. So we knew, and we put together these arguments that we just talked about, in a very, and I think a very persuasive, cogent way that linked directly to the National Defense Strategy, and then we had incredible advocates. I cannot say enough about Lieutenant General Saeed, the Inspector General of the Air Force, who is our oversight function and just day to day is our partner in realizing, where OSI needs to go.
Sure.
We've had 2 incredible chiefs of staff of the Air Force, both who had made their way through as the Combined Forces Air Component Commanders out in the desert. So knew OSI at the very tip of the spear and what that looked like, what we brought to them. And then we've had 2 very visionary secretaries, and Secretary Wilson and Secretary Barrett. So all of those, the right people in the right place at the right time to have this discussion with, ended up with an incredible lean-in of resources for the command. But I tell you, what's important here is it's not just the resources that we received, it was the right breakout of those resources. And I would argue even something that, just as we said, will change as
Sure.
we move forward.
Yeah.
We'll move some into different areas and others as the command needs to, as we find ourselves in different points
Right.
in the future with different
Sure.
challenges. But those increases certainly came. We over the two acquisition for resource cycles
Okay.
at the Pentagon, we successfully lobbied and were able to get more agents in our officer enlisted and civilian categories, which is fantastic.
It's great to get it across the board. Like
Well,
that.
and it is very good to get it across the board and very important, and got it in the level of strength, that I think we need in each of those areas. But just as importantly, increase in our analytical core. Our analysts, this had been an area for the command. We were just, we were far behind. We've known for a while. We've been working, but this was really, the Air Force did a great job of springing us forward to catch up with some of those needs. So I put these, incredibly talented, brilliant analysts. Then we roll in the data analytics capability and access to those tools that they will have. And it is a powerful combination. But,
Right.
And that brought with it professionalizing that core, instituting a career development path, and beginning to watch how we're going to do that. So a young analyst comes into OSI and he or she can see themselves in the future in the leadership positions that we're opening up for
Right,
them,
right.
the international opportunities,
Right.
liaison to other organization opportunities that we're seeing, moving more down into the field level. So, that's fantastic. But then growing in other areas with experts like data engineers, people that we need to actually speak the language of
Right,
code,
right.
folks with cyber backgrounds, international affairs specialists. For so long, we've had our agents and pro staff members have to become jacks of all trades, right? You move in, you get brought to headquarters, and we put you in a place. But we've progressed so far now that we absolutely need people who have lived in the international affairs, international relations realm for a while to move our partner engagement forward. We need those data engineers to be able to speak the language of data analytics. That
Yeah.
when I come in as a digital immigrant and then some, and say, this is what I need. Those folks that can transition that into the appropriate algorithms and language that produces those outcomes for the agents and for the analysts.
Yeah.
And then finally getting ourselves plussed up in our professional staff in a number of places, out in the field and here at headquarters, who are absolutely the folks who are getting it done for the command every single day.
Again, our novice listeners, professional staff within OSI are a lot of the behind-the-scenes folks.
Absolutely.
who really make things happen for the folks who are in the field.
Our financiers, our personnelists, our logisticians, our IT specialists, and I could go on and on and on, but all of those folks who absolutely, keep the communications line open, do everything they can to take care of, individual personnel's issues, challenges, needs, to allow them to stay focused on the job. Not where we want to be yet, but I'm excited about the growth across and in the right places for the command. But the fact that they will now have the total numbers to be able to move that workforce and adjust it as needed as they make their way into the future.
Sounds great, General. Next up, sir, near the end of 2019, you instituted your 2020 Strategic Communications Plan, which is designed to leverage all the necessary communication platforms to build on successes, focus on efforts, and help execute and augment the 2018 OSI Strategic Plan and the OSI we need, as we mentioned a little earlier. Sir, how far has the StratCom plan come to fruition since the start of 2020?
Oh my goodness, night and day doesn't even do it justice. I would say. So in the big, very visible ways. Look at us, Wayne. We're sitting here now doing an OSI podcast.
A year ago, we wouldn't have done this.
No, not, wouldn't have done that. But it's been fun to just really pull the reins off the PA team and say, just get creative. And we've had some, so to be able to do things like that, to be able to have folks like Major Womble and Major Bergstein,
right.
come in from a social media perspective. We knew we needed to change, update, move forward with our social media platforms. And so we've had, two just wonderful people come in who took every bit of limited vision we had, breathed life into it, and took it so much further.
Right.
So now to look at our presence and to look back a year ago, and it's so funny because at first, as we started to tip our, put our toe into this water, of course, all of us old timers who, concerned about OPSEC and information,
right.
And what we do there. Even for me, it was, are we doing the right thing? But then COVID hit. And we had our platforms up long enough and had them established that became one of the key ways that Chief and I were able to communicate in some of those early days with a lot of the big changes that were going on across the command. Those Facebook town halls, I think, are still the most viewed, engaged that we've had, and certainly we've normed out and hit that. But it was a way for us to be able to communicate not only to the members of the command at the time, but to our OSI retired community who stay so close to us, follow us closely. Our retired personnel, that want to know what's going on, and then probably the most important, it gave our family members. Especially those who were deployed or their loved ones were TDY doing things, and it gave them the ability to do that. So it facilitated things that we didn't even see coming, but it absolutely did that. So now as I look about what we're doing on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and knowing that right now we're again building that foundation, that future teams are going to come in and just take to the next level and the next level and the next level. And it's going to be exciting to watch and how we communicate with them. But I'll tell you, some of the ways I don't think are is quite as clear to the field. And it wasn't until I think that we arrived here, and I say we as the top four, that we realized the age that we are in engagement with the media, in engagement with those families or people outside of investigations but tied to them in some way, and how important that's become, how critical information flow is, because now it's so much easier, it's so much more available, and it sets that expectation. And so I'm so proud of you and Linda, from the traditional PA standpoint, and how we're now moving in engagement with the media in a different direction than we have in the past. Number one, because I think we have to. It is just an expectation of the time. But also because I think it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the agency. It's the right thing to do for the department. It's the right thing to do for the public, and striking that right balance of what is it we're trying to communicate about what has happened in an event and what we have, put that into a greater context of the military investigative side of things. So it's been fun to watch, even from the traditional media relationships that we have, how you guys have fundamentally switched a gear on that, changed it, and how conversational that is amongst us all very quickly. Knowing the importance of a word, and the importance and the timing of an engagement.
It's become a much more, I think, a bigger part of OSI's just daily vernacular. as far as you said communication
Yeah.
with the media, our local audiences, international audiences. They all tie in. Whether it's website, podcast, media queries, things like this. OSI has really gotten its 3 letters out there. That's for sure.
Well, and that's it. And I think it's not a branding thing anymore. And never was. It's an expectation. It's what I think a transparent democratic American public expects of its government agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way to balance that with the natural OPSEC, national security aspect of
Right.
what we do.
Right.
And I think we go to the nth degree to strike that balance and do those things, but then an expectation of our force. Right. I mean,
Right.
I think we now have speaking of digital immigrants like me, we have digital agents who are coming of age in the command,
Yeah.
and they expect to know what's going on in their command. They expect to know, and they expect to know it on more than a quarterly or 2 times a year or just via email. They expect to have it on demand. They expect to see those
Yeah.
things, and quite frankly, we want to maintain and keep that talent. Keep those folks who are hungry for information in the command.
Right.
And this becomes
They're the ones who grew up with it.
well, and that's it. Who now don't sit back and aren't comfortable with, well, we'll tell you when you need to know, or just have faith that you'll.
Yeah.
No, we want to be open and communicating with them as well. So now the incredible part of watching what you and Linda and the PA team do is and the CAG and everybody who takes part in that as
Right,
well
right.
is the balancing of all of those audiences, and how do you communicate with all of them, and somehow you guys manage to do it. We do it across the elements of our strategic communication plan. We now have places where we can see, hey, we're doing well in this area. We're falling a little bit behind in this area. We need to up our game here a little bit. We now have those measures. We now have that dialogue going,
Right.
among us and within the command. So again, exciting to see where we are and where we're going to head.
That's right. We're now being able to quantify what we do, which
Right.
is good.
Exactly. Exactly.
General, in September of 2019, you rolled out the OSI Diversity and Inclusion Strategy by signing the Command's D&I Charter, which established a specific D&I vision, its mission, and the goals. How is OSI progressing toward attaining those goals set for itself?
So I think there's two lines of discussion here. There is absolutely moving from the charter, and it started back with. I think Colonel Stabler is our previous commander. It absolutely started with him and his vision for a diversity plus inclusion officer who we now have,
Right.
and Ms. Dixon, one
Yep.
of your previous guests.
There we go.
So hitting that element, and then making sure that we had the right surrounding group for her. To move projects forward in the council. And so it was such an honor to watch the workup for that begin under Colonel Stabler, and then, such an honor for me to be able to sign it as I came on and institutionalize the group and that council within the command. But then to watch Ms. Dixon then breathe life into it.
Right.
And then from that, the action plan emerged. The things that we thought as a command, that we should be looking at, we should be tackling. So literally, that's all happening, and then we have the George Floyd tragedy happen,
Right.
and we have the national discussion begin. Not only focused just on race and law enforcement. But the larger discussion of equality and where are we in this journey as a nation, and all of that dialogue that started. And I tell you, again so pleased that we had Ms. Dixon. We had our council in place. That then informed some of the tweaking of that action plan, actually, as that dialogue was going on. And then the absolute heroes that we had emerge in Miss Dixon and Chief Byrne Flint, and several of our region commanders, Colonel Henderson, Colonel Tilo,
Right.
come to mind, who stepped up and began to lead some of those tough conversations that we needed to have within the command, because we're sitting as a law enforcement agency, we're sitting as a military organization,
Right.
as a national security member of the intelligence community, all with these themes of race and equality and gender and
Yeah.
all of these aspects. And of course, we're a command who has historically loved a diverse workforce because of the very nature of the work that we do.
Sure. Sure.
The number of environments we operate in, the value that we've put on language and culture, and how far that had already come along.
Mm-hmm.
But we needed to have those conversations. So these, the council and Ms. Dixon and our leader heroes who stepped up in this, and who propelled these conversations forward, who presented an avenue for these ideas to emerge. And then Ms. Dixon, being there for each of these conversations, being able to pull that in, move that back into informing the council and helping that, set the action plan in place. Yeah. And so as we get into the new year, I'm excited about starting to get the updates on, hey, we brought it all the way to the action plan. We set our individual groups and leaders for each of those things that we were going to look at within the command. And then Miss Dixon and Colonel Knuckles, who has been all over this,
Right.
And a huge proponent and advocate and someone for Miss Dixon who, absolutely took both of our needs and worked it within the command.
Right.
But we will begin to get updated on how we're doing. And then not only getting updates up here, not only getting updates as a senior leadership, but I'm looking forward to then updating the field in each of those areas.
So you can start quantifying that area. Yeah.
To be able to say, okay, here's, what we've done in taking a look at recruiting. Here's what we've done in taking a look at our own policies, some of these things. And it's amazing, once you step back and start looking at those things through that lens, how some of the things we took for granted.
Right.
And it's fun watching our efforts parallel what the department's doing, what Secretary Barrett and General Brown have set for us, and what's happening at that stage and how we're plugged in and part
Sure.
of that conversation,
Yeah.
and then working through that in our context. So suffice it to say, if it's not coming across now, I'm very excited on this point, and very excited that we're going to go into the new year talking about some tangible things being done as a result of all of the of a great vision. Coupled with a horrible tragedy and a loss of life, but then how that's been worked into a very positive way forward for the command.
Right.
And it's all of those folks that I mentioned through the conversation, and many that I haven't, who are absolutely working our way forward on that.
Yeah. Tip of the cap to all those folks. Outstanding
Absolutely.
job, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
General, you've always been a proponent of balancing one's job with one's off-duty activities as a way of relieving stressors, especially in a demanding profession like you said, OSI. In your opinion, how is that important balancing act amplified during the holiday season that we're in now, coupled with COVID, of course?
Oh, absolutely. So right, go into the holiday season with COVID on top of that, and all the change we've got going on around the command. And literally what I would say is up until this point, all the things that we've talked about, the large lift and changing that we've had to do around the command, and that's, from the headquarters all the way down to the field detachments and the things we've had to do there, coupled with COVID, coupled with that national debate discussion that we've been having. It's made for a pretty busy, pretty tumultuous, pretty eventful 2020, right?
Yes, it has.
And again, this is where, thank goodness for, visionary leaders who have come before us, visionary leaders on the staff now. I heap a ton of praise on Chief Byrne Flint for our initial sit down and discussion on our DO 300, our developing our 300 program. that went all the way back to General Goldfein having his first stand down day as we saw the suicide rate rising. Across the Air Force, which is just, and we sit, unfortunately, on the front row of that discussion because we engage, on many of them, certainly all of them from the active duty side. And so to say that, okay, we love that stand down day, we love that, engagement, but now how do we take that forward into a profession where not only are we seeing this, but the other stressors are weighing on us as well, and then layer in all the other things that emerged after that. So I was so glad when we stood up that developing our 300 program, and we stood up DO 300, and we said, okay, you got 4 to 8 hours a month. That hey, I'm saying go do. But we're not going to assign PowerPoint slides to it. We're not going to give it structure. We're not going to tell you that you're going to cover this training block, that training block. You know your unit better than we do. You know your unit's particular needs. You know where they are. You know the discussion they need to have, maybe the tough discussion they need to have. You know the team building that needs to occur. You know that the stressful past few weeks that you've been under, and maybe you just need to go do something and blow off steam.
And there's where that innovation comes in, perhaps.
Well, and that's it, exactly. Now watching folks creatively figure out, and then of course COVID hit, and we had to do some things virtually, or we had to do some things socially distanced, or we had to take activities that we would have normally do and transition into other activities, which even in some cases turned out to be helping cases for those that were struggling with COVID.
Sure.
But so I was very excited about that. Then very excited about the True North program, the Air Force's larger program, and the fact that this year we will start to bring on some additional mental health professionals, for all of our teammates to be able to tap into. We have been blessed with a hero in Doc Swank for a while, a huge hero in Doc Swank.
She was also one of our guests.
And so she's she's been, as I call her affectionately, my one-legged woman in a butt kicking contest for a long time now. So now we're finally going to be able to get some folks out there to help her, to engage more, to do those things. And so I'm very excited about that. But specifically to your question on what does it mean for the holidays, I go back to something that Chief Burnflint was the first one to educate me on, which is work-life harmony instead of work-life balance. This profession, it's almost impossible to get a work-life balance. So we have to strike a harmony. We have to pay into the life part of that equation when we can.
Right.
Sometimes that's leaving work at 2:00 in the afternoon to go to somebody's play, somebody's ball game, somebody's recital, some special function. Sometimes that's taken off early for a birthday party. Sometimes that might be coming in a little bit late, taking that time. The holidays to me are one of those times that you get to pay into that part of the harmony. You get to pay into that bank. That hopefully, and for the listeners, that's wood. I'm knocking on it. As many of us get as quiet a time as possible to go build those memories with family. To go celebrate the holidays, celebrate the quiet time, do those things that we can do, and take advantage of it. To be able to, invest in, our families, our loved ones, even if it's virtually reaching out at this point, just taking a knee, reading something that we wouldn't normally read, catching up on some things that we haven't already done. And I think I have watched too many people use this holiday period as catch-up time, only to realize that come January 4th, game's back on again.
That's right.
The motor's running and it's 100%. And we miss that opportunity. I'm saying I'm pointing 2 thumbs back at myself, sometimes have missed that opportunity to take full advantage, or as much as this job will allow us to do during this time. Take a knee, enjoy those around you, recharge that battery, because trust me, whether we want it to or not, January is going to hit The holidays are going to end, and we're going to be right back into the sprint again.
So it's not only okay to do it, but it's important to do
It's
it.
important to do it. It is a part of that investing in ourselves. I think we collectively, as the OSI family, spend so much time helping those around us, helping those victims of crime, helping those commanders who are in a big conundrum. We are always giving of ourselves, pushing ourselves, committing to the mission, knowing that we are not a 9-to-5 job, never have been, never will be, that we don't often get time to be able to take care of ourselves, to reinvest in ourselves, and reinvest in those family members who are the most patient and understanding people on this planet,
Right.
that we collectively pursue this profession, and they work in life around it.
Yeah.
Now is a couple of weeks when maybe you can let them, be the forefront and be at the center of everything. And if you have to work in a little bit around it.
Right.
But don't miss the opportunity to put them at the center of it for a while.
That's right, because once that time is gone, it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. And like I say, January hits, and I've done it now 28 times. And it's and everybody comes out of the gate, and everybody's like, well, where's everybody been for 2 weeks? And those first few weeks are just absolutely busy. So my counsel to everybody would be, enjoy it while you got it.
Very good, sir. General, as we're about to flip the calendar to 2021, let's talk a bit about what's in store for the command next year. What do you see on the horizon that OSI can look forward to experiencing? Hopefully, number one thing is no longer with us will be COVID-19. but other than that,
exactly, a successful vaccine rollout, successful results coming from that, and absolutely knocking this thing back on its heels is first. I know on everybody's mind, certainly on mine. And as we watch the numbers right now, I am concerned about the numbers around the command. So I am the biggest cheerleader for the vaccine I think there is out there right now, because I just don't want to see any more of our folks get sick. I don't want to see any more put in jeopardy. But holy cow, where would I start? We've talked about all these changes, all these things occurring. And there are a number of things that I'm looking forward to. And there's no way we would have to do a completely separate podcast on that one. But here's my short list. Here's my Santa's list for next year and what we're looking for. And I will tell you, I'm excited. We will begin to breathe life into our national security detachments. As we talked about those first offices opening up in that technology protection front and fight with the interagency.
Right.
This is going to be one of the main centers of gravity on how we're going to do it. And those units have been opened on paper. We have names beginning to show up against billet numbers, but I think in 21 we're going to see the first steps, the first inklings of what those things will look like, and matching hopefully the vision that we had for them. But then, of course, like so many other things, far outpacing or showing us ways to do things in a different way we're not even thinking about yet. The beta test of Orion, the replacement for I2MS. Very excited about seeing.
Now, as far as our first-time listeners, could you just kind of give us a broad brush about what I2MS
Absolutely.
is?
So I2MS, our case management system, our current case management system, the thing that is the center of all things, the center of all information that comes in, which has been a long-standing great product for us for a long time in this command, still benchmarked by others in the industry. But we are now at a point where we're ready to evolve to our next system, which is the Orion system. And I've gone from calling this a case management system to a case enabling system. Starting to build that system that will incorporate all of the things we've talked about, the ability to pull in that data. The ability to one day build in an AI background that as we're putting information into the system, it's anticipating what we may want, offering up places it can go search.
Right.
It's making an analyst's life easier, an agent's life easier, certain members of the pro staff's life easier, in the way that it can produce information at a faster rate, that it can bring more things together that currently I2MS just doesn't have the ability to do. So I'm excited about seeing the first beta test for that. Now I have to manage expectations. Everybody thinks we're just going to roll out this new Cadillac all in one piece.
You have to kind of crawl before you can walk.
I would say we're going to get the chassis and the wheels out
Okay.
first. And it's but Dr. Sunderbrook, our executive director, explains this very well. We're building it just like we're building modern weapon systems now with open racks. And open racks, knowing that one day we're going to slide in an advanced technology, machine learning, AI, other things that are going to just allow the system to grow and grow and grow and evolve as we need it to.
Right.
So it's going to be different than our earlier system, Cactus, that I grew up with,
Okay.
I2MS, the current system,
Right.
in that as we launch it, it'll be in smaller parts and it will build on itself. And there'll be a feedback loop in there from the field on what's working, what's not along the way.
Right.
So I'm excited about seeing the first iteration, that those wheels and chassis come out and and
Very
see what
good.
that looks like. We finally are going to have the requirements set for our new weapon. And that's usually the biggest question that I get now. When are we going to see, the M11 finally retired to go? Well, after a lot of starts and stops, after a lot of hope in systems, and then unfortunately those systems not panning out to be what we needed, we are now back on track with the new requirement that is finally getting out of the Pentagon before the end of the new year, and so we'll go into the next level of evaluation, the next level of fulfilling that requirement.
Right.
So I'm excited to see how quickly we can move that, and trust me, the whole team is behind that. So, and I know for a lot of our listeners, that's they'll be very interested
Very
in that.
good.
We're hiring the next investigative and indexing specialist out into the field. So this next 20 will come on this year. We'll see those hired. We'll then have a majority out in the 66 locations that we had set out to do over a 3-year period. And these are game changers. These personnel are game changers at each of their detachments, because they are going to take on the indexing, which is so complicated, so tough, and is only going to get more so as we move into the future. But they are also going to take over programs like our weapons programs and evidence programs and things. So in other words, they're going to let agents be able to step back from being program managers and just be agents again. Let our pro staffers step back from those programs and do the things that we need them to do from an administrative, personnel, those type things.
Sounds like a win-win.
At the unit level, it's going to be great, and I'm so excited about those folks. I get a little giddy on them. We're going to see deeper integration with the Space Force. Looking forward to what the new partnership at the installation level looks like on the fraud standpoint and investigative standpoint, part of that reorganization.
Right.
What does OSI need to do in the future? What does Security Forces Investigations need to do in the future? But making sure that we do that in a partnered way moving forward, so as not to create gaps and seams. So very excited about that. We've talked about the D&I Council and the things we're going to see on that point. Our new protective service details. We've gone through the reorganization. We've been promised our 54 Security Forces defenders to finally man those details at the right way. And so we'll begin to see those folks come on board and begin to flesh out those protective service details in the way that we've wanted to see them. Historically for years, we'll finally get to be there. We're going to see more exercising of the way Air Force, the way OSI will support the Air Force and Space Force and how we fight in the future. We're going to see more agents participating in these exercises, which is going to inform the doctrine that we're writing right now. And it's going to be fun to see over a year how far we get in building out what that looks like in the future and getting ourselves into wargaming discussions and things along those lines. So very excited about that. We're going to more fully man our Directorate of Partner Engagement. Get them up and running. Very excited about what that holds for the future. Very excited about we're going to have our first force development organization open up here. We've traditionally had our organizational development function, which has been huge for this command.
Sure.
It was a brilliance noted years ago. Now that force development side coming along to manage our folks from recruiting to how do we develop them to how do we better posture them to be great specialists, great leaders in the command, growing up as we go through, nurturing that all along the way, really that talent management that we've wanted for a long, long time, beginning to stand up and do
Right.
that. And then, again, I could go on and on,
Right.
but we're going to see more agents come into our procurement fraud offices and then become part of our national security detachments. Very excited about that model. Our PFers, our fraud pros now being viewed as elements of national security, not just good order and discipline and holding contractors accountable, but really members of the battle space of the future. So I'm excited about that. And then finally, we will go to full mission capability with the Criminal Justice Information Cell here for the department, which is a culmination of a long road since Sutherland Springs and the tragedy there, and how far we've come in our ability to index correctly, very quickly, and now really maximize it as an investigative tool. So a lot.
A lot of exciting times ahead in
Absolutely.
the next 12 months, General, no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Normally at this time, as we wind things up, I would ask a guest, is there anything else you'd like to add? And I think when we were off mic, you wanted to extend acknowledgement of how important this day is, the 21st of December, in OSI's history. And I know you wanted to mention that.
And as we were talking about, I was so glad that we, across our social media, we've started to celebrate the days when we have lost our fallen along the way. And of course, today, is the 5th anniversary of the biggest one-day loss in our command's history, with our heroes that we lost at Bagram.
They're known as the Hustler Six.
Exactly, our Hustler Six loss that we did, and I love the fact that we just talk about them in that category. We don't talk about agents. We don't talk about defenders. We talk about the 6 teammates that we lost that day. So I just didn't want to have the day passed without being able to talk about Adriana, Mike, Pete, Chester, Lou, Joe. Those incredible people that we lost on that very tragic day, and to think about how this command rallied, to think about the great leadership that General Gibbons gave us at the time,
Right.
When we lost those heroes, the way that the command collapsed around those families, and did all we could. The amazing effort of this leadership team at that time to make sure that we were present at all of those services, at all of those things that happened in the time since, but to honor them, number one, by remembering them.
Correct.
By speaking their names, by talking about the place that they, the place of honor they have on our Hall of Heroes here at the headquarters. But then just to be able to extend, a continuing resolution to their families, that they remain a part of this OSI family. COVID has kept us from doing the memorials each year, the remembrance ceremonies, and that's heartbreaking for all of us here, because we so enjoy having those families here, opening up the hallway. Being able to have those dialogue and have that very formal way to reinforce with them that their loved ones are not forgotten and they are not forgotten. So we will be doing certainly there are remembrances going on throughout the command today, which I love the fact that in big ways and small we do that on each of these days of remembrance. And then we will be doing a wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier later on to be able to commemorate all of our fallen,
Right.
but certainly including the Hustler 6 team as well.
Right. And of course, the Hustler 6 made it a total of 16 fallen for
Yes.
the command itself. So our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to their family members as we remember them on this
Absolutely.
day, and we will never forget. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and then finally, we've finished where we started, and that's the mettle of this command and the people within it. And I would just want to pass on, a very heartfelt happy holidays to our entire workforce, your families. The families of those who are deployed and those deployed right now who are going to be spending the holidays downrange, as we've all experienced at different points in our careers, being away but being with our unit families, but doing our best to stay connected with them. But I could not be more humbled, more proud, more honored of the airmen of this command. And that's, airmen in a big A, every capacity, every corner of this command, for everything we've talked about over the session here, how amazing that all of you have performed, in a year that would have been challenging in its own right, with everything going on, but then with everything else, keeping the mission going, taking care of each other, breathing life into all of these things that we need to be doing while maintaining the core of all of the things we deliver day to day for the Air Force. It's awe-inspiring to have been able to sit here and watch it. And it just gets me more excited about being able to have a front row seat again next year to watch the incredible things that our people will do and this command will do.
Our guest has been OSI Commander, Brigadier General Terry Bullard. Sir, again, thanks for taking the time to be with us, to squeeze us in on your wall-to-wall schedule. It's great to have you with us.
Wayne, thank you again for the time. Thanks for setting this up. And this was, you did very well. You got me through it with no pain whatsoever, just as you promised. And I look forward to hopefully maybe being a guest again at some point.
No problem, sir. And thank all of you for listening. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.